hitting the live button here.
Yay!
We're live.
We are live.
Welcome, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and just for good measure, hit the record button. So welcome, everyone. The Theta Power Hour. And I always say, I'm Brenda B. Bailey. I know great people. I know influencers, experts. You will learn something, and also you will also hear something that you know somebody else needs to hear. So please like, comment, share. We want to know what your aha was. It's great feedback for us. And it also just kind of gets us out there in media land, just so you know. So as always, the outline is you get introduced and you get to hear from my amazing featured guest. And then at the end, I take a few notes and we do a little bit of theta healing work at the end. And I'll explain more about that when it gets closer to that, because today it is about hearing from Liz. So welcome, welcome. We are going to be talking to Liz Dederer. Did I say that right, Liz?
I think I'm the one that says it wrong. I say Dederer, but I just respond at this point.
Let me tell you a little bit about Liz, right? I'll just say Liz. Liz D. Let me introduce you to Liz D. So Liz is a 20-year, 5-time entrepreneur and advocate for women and social justice. She is the CEO of Selling with Service, which empowers women to make money and create change. Everybody's like, oh, okay, now we know why Brenda has her here. Because again, these are things that I love for people to do. So yay. So her flagship business coaching program, the Sales School for Entrepreneurs, provides women with the business in a box to create a high touch, low tech service business so they can experience their first forever 5-figure months. So always wanted to give back. She's been recognized as Mentor of the Year for the Women's Mentoring Network for Economic Empowerment in Connecticut, and currently serves as president-elect for her Florida chapter of the National Association of Women Business Owners. And the reason that I know Liz, just by the way, is because she is also a platinum member of eWomen Network. And this is how Liz and I met. And I was like, oh, I like her. Let's connect. Will you come be on my co-live? So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so looking forward to this conversation today.
Because you guys are going to learn some things. And I'll tell you what I love about what I'm going to be asking Liz about are things that people and women, but everyone is a little nervous about, you know? So here's the first question. So why do we get so weird in sales conversations?
There's a lot of reasons why, but I'm going to keep it short because we don't have we're not going to keep everyone hostage here for the whole year. But first thing is to acknowledge that we do. Right? It's just a thing. And I think that a lot of people try to get some sort of like that's ever going to go away or whatever. And we guilt and shames ourselves around it. So I think it's just important to say that we do get weird in sales conversations. And one of the reasons why is because, especially as women, sales has been traditionally a masculine, male-dominated sport, if you will. And women are built entirely different. We are social butterflies. Here's some math around it. Women close 11% on average higher than men. But only 20% of sales leaders and trainers are women. So we are better at it, but we are being mansplained to that we're doing it wrong. So of course we show up weird, because we don't know how to do it their way, because that's not how we are. That's kind of it.
Well, and because I do have a sales background, for those of you who don't know me, like I had a sales company, 7 figures, did really well. And I think that that's the biggest thing, a smart and of my age, right? I was in a sales force with a lot of men. And the deal is that what I find, and I absolutely agree with Liz, is that they, and back in the day, and I think it's changing. I hope the culture's changing, the energy's changing, and especially with somebody like Liz, who's making us have an awareness that we can go, okay, I'll be different, is that we do sell differently, and we do sell differently to men and women. I mean, it's just is. And that's why a lot of people like to just like women like to work with women mostly. And that's because we can relate. So when you're looking at that, I think that that's been the biggest thing. It's like what I know and what I intuitively know.
Yes.
And when we can follow our intuition, we have more success with it, which I think is what Liz is making you aware of. So if you agree with that, if you're like, oh, I got to tag somebody on this, they need to hear this. Because I think that what ends up happening, because as women, we want to please everyone. And then it disconnects us, which is why it's beautiful. And I also think too, which is beautiful, and I'll just say this out loud as well, you see all these people who work with 6 and 7 figure people, entrepreneurs and coaches. Well, but you need help to get there. And that's what I love about Liz as well, is that she's saying, hey, let me help you here, have a consistent 5-figure business, right? Because it's a baby steps. It's like, let's get to 5 first. And then you can get, and especially I know with Liz, because I'm in her Facebook group and I've seen what she does and what she offers. Again, I do my due diligence as well, guys. Is that you're going to understand that, and you're going to get that from her, and you'll get that foundation. Because I think what ends up happening for people is they hit that 6 and 7 figure, Liz, and they don't have the foundation set up.
Or they go to teach the foundations, but they're disconnected from it because they haven't been there in so long. They're teaching at their level of expertise to kindergartners. And it's not wrong. And I don't mean anything negative by that. But when you're starting out, there's a phrase that I love that's, in the eyes of a third grader, a fourth grader is a god. So when sometimes they reach that level, they want to stay and play with, in the coaching model specifically. In the tiered coaching model, when the business owner who's leading the pack is growing their business and their revenue is growing, they are taking their clients with them. It's an ascension journey. It's a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong. And that front door feeder program, they're no longer the right ones to be teaching that directly, because they're better to play at the higher level. And what a lot of them haven't done is created the facilitator model to come in and get someone to teach at that entry level, or just let go of that entry level. Like Allie Brown has done so beautifully. She's like, I don't play there anymore. If I step into a room and you're asking me if I should do Confusionsoft or ClickFunnels or something, she's like, I'm out of that room. It's not where I need to be. When I hear those conversations, I'm like, whoop, let's talk. I'm in the right place. You guys are having the right conversations because you're talking about the wrong things, and I'm going to help you look at the right things. That's where I know my people are. She doesn't play in that space anymore, and I think that a lot of the business coaches that are in the space, it's no wrong. I'm not pointing fingers. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm just highlighting my lens, is that as they grow, we're all a reflection of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And if you have a mastermind or a VIP group, you want those people close to your level. Right? That's normal. So playing now to that entry level point, you're disconnected, and you're naturally going to be speaking about bigger concepts that they're not ready to understand. Period. And it's not a dumbing down thing. It has nothing to do with that. It's distilling it. It's actually, in the land of marketing, if you want to have a video done, anyone can babble on for days. But if you want to have a 30-second video as opposed to a 5-minute video done, which one do you think is more expensive to produce?
I can give you a hint there. The shorter it is.
The shorter it is, the harder it is to get your message more succinct. So someone who's teaching the fundamentals, it's hard to stay in that lane because I want to conceptualize with everyone. And at the end of the day, what I have found, why women are not reaching the financial metrics, sure, it's sales. Sure, it's money mindset, all of those things, right? And the reason why I teach the business model I teach, low tech, high touch, is because the woman I'm working with, where do I click to connect the leg bone to the neck bone, and how do I send the thing? Do I need ClickFunnels or do I need the Confusionsoft? And I was just talking to a woman in another Facebook group, and she goes, oh, I get it. I have ActiveCampaign and ClickFunnels, so I'll use MailChimp to bridge them. What?
Yeah, we're both just at Scooby-Doo.
No, step away from the keyboard, step away. No. That's where they're spending the bulk of their time, is trying to understand things that they have no concept to understand. I go to my doctor for my, antidepressants or whatever, right? I'm not saying, well, I heard this commercial where this one's going to be the best. No, you know the details about the things in this. That's your job. Let me stay in my lane. That's it.
Actually, just wrote that down. Stay in lane.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think that that's also too, because I was just actually having a conversation with a new client. And again, this is not what Liz does is not my wheelhouse. It's not my interest. It's not my wheelhouse. But when I have conversations, and people always come to see me because they're not making the money that they want to make, what I said to her was, do you have a business coach? And it's not me, right? Like I can refer you a million times. I will be more, and that's why I always have that deal. And I say that all the time. I have a chat with Brenda, have a 30-minute conversation with me. I'll give you some recommendations. I've been in this field, I've been an entrepreneur for 28 years. I've been around.
Yeah.
But and she was saying, oh, I'm doing this, this, and this, and this. And I just said to her, and it's a painful thing to say. I said, have a session with me, but I need to tell you, you're doing a lot of tactics and you need a strategy. You need a strategy. And believe me, as we're all growing, we all make that mistake. Yes. And then you realize it. And then when you do get a strategy, you kind of go, or you work with someone who helps you with a strategy. It's kind of like, oh, because you're just like, oh, and people just want to, keep doing, because again, we like to feel like we're doing something, but there's a point where you're doing stuff or you're throwing money at things. And that's why we get frustrated.
Yep. There's kind of four buckets I've broken it down to. This is kind of the first time I'm going to articulate it like this. So bear with me as I kind of say it a little sloppy, but as you're saying that, I'm like, wait a minute, I think there's a thing around here. So there's 4 kind of phases. I'm going to doodle this out while I'm saying this. That someone needs to go through. There are 4 different strategic pieces that need to be strung together. One is I'm just writing this down so I have it. 4 pieces. The first one is, and of course, these are all things within my wheelhouse, right? That's what I can speak to. The first one is, where are you getting your people from? What's your outreach? What's your marketing? What's your front door funnel process? Whatever words you want to use. What does that look like? You need to have a strategy for getting yourself out there. I teach, like I said, low tech. I teach an old school outreach method. It's not cold calling. We don't do that. I call it the Conversation Creation Challenge. And it teaches you how to use social from the inside without the spammy messages. Like, it's totally normal and human, but you have to have a way that you can be in control of turning the faucet on and turning it off. Right? So you have to have a strategy around your front door. Second strategy is what I call the invisible business model. You have to know what you're selling to whom, for how much, what are you calling it? How many do you need to sell to reach what goal? I give that's the business in a box. That's the invisible business model. That's the 120,000 is your revenue goal. I tell you what it is. I'm not asking anymore. I was sick of fighting people on it. Well, I just want to make what my corporate. Nope. 120. Don't argue with me. 120. That's the first goal. That's where we start. And then we reverse engineer. Here's going to be the first, package you're going to work. It's all done for you. That's your second strategy. The third strategy is, and that's kind of your masculine containers for the business, so that us as the feminine over deliverers, service providers, people pleasers, we need to have a masculine container to swim in. Right? The problem is that the service providing women are so fluid in our energies that it's just like water on a concrete surface. It just goes everywhere and has no impact. But if we have the invisible business model, a bunch of little Dixie cups stuck together, you can be much more impactful in each of those little swirly places. So necessary to have that framework in place. And it is designed specifically low tech, high touch to get you to that 120,000. And then you can go do all the techie things and play with all the things, right? But that's where I start. And then at that point too, your business is bringing in the revenue to justify the thing. So you don't have to make the decision. The person that you hired can make those tech decisions for you. That's bucket number 2. The third bucket is what I call the close clients quickly system. This is, you have to have a sales conversation, a sales process. This is the third strategy. It's all nice and fun and games if you can get people in and you can have the outside conversations and you know your products and your packages and your programs and your pricing and blah, blah, blahs. You've got your ideal client avatar. What do you do when you, now what? There is a process, a strategy to that. Again, extension of the business in a box. Do this, have them click the thing, say that blah, blah, blahs, all done. And then the fourth thing to have in place, and this is kind of where this is the beginning and end of kind of where my zone is. The last place that we kind of touch is that client onboarding. It's all cool to be able to have the sales conversation, know what to say when, at what inflection point, and all the other things. But if you don't have, if your house isn't cleaned up to invite somebody into, that's where you're going to sabotage the sales unconsciously, is because you don't want to bring anybody into the house. So we have to create that initial onboarding kind of steps, product phase, whatever you want to call it, framework, system, exactly, strategy, so that you can walk them in, you can close the sale, onboard them, and then go party. But it's those 4 things that really need to be in place, those strategies. And within each one, you put the paint on it. And within each one, you call it the different things and you have the fun with it. And that's where the tactics go into each piece. But without that strategy laid out, you're like, oh, well, I have the MailChimp to connect to the ClickFunnels to connect to the active campaign. They're all the same.
Exactly. And those are 3 different charges. And it's, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, and I think what you're saying also, Liz, is that, and I was actually, when I was talking to this one client that I'm talking about, I was like, your strategy is your North Star.
Yeah.
And you've got to get that together in order to be able to head to that.
Yep.
I mean, I have a business coach. I venture to say that Liz has a business coach. You know, and I used to, back in the day when I heard Sandra Yancey say, I have a coach, I'd be like, you know, BS. She's just trying to get us to hire her as to be her, you know, for her to be our business coach. And then again, in my growth, I realized like, oh, that wasn't no BS. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I also think, Liz, that ends up happening for people is that you don't understand those foundations. And some of them are not natural. Metrics for most women,
not natural.
Seeing how the results come are not natural.
Correct.
Being able to reach out, to connect, natural for most women. I'm not going to say all women, but for most, and doing that. And then what's the next step? And I got to tell you, onboarding system, and even energetically, because we know that's how I roll. If you don't have that in place, in order to have that system, I got to tell you, man, it's like it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work if you don't have it together when you start bringing people on. And it's that, you know, saying yes to the universe, like I'm ready for, you know, because as you grow, you got to have that system in place or you're not, it's one of those indicators like the universe or whoever, right, is going, oh, well, you can only handle one person at a time.
Yes. You have to have it in place because energetically you will self-sabotage along the way because you're embarrassed to bring something to the next step. So the more confident you are of where the next step is that the person is going. So there's a function of, you kind of have to reverse engineer this strategy, while at the same point knowing what the strategy is to build it forward. It's not perfect, right? It's a process, and skill sets are going to align to it differently, etc. But you need to know what you're inviting someone into so that you can be really genuinely proud and excited about it. And the other thing is, we over deliver. One of the biggest things I hear from women is that they one of two things happens in the sales call. They're either giving it all away because they've turned it into a coaching session, or they get weird and bait and switch into sales energy, like we were talking about, why people get weird in sales calls. So the other thing is, everything I've built in sales school was to protect me from me, right? Because I was doing all the things wrong, 100%. So the onboarding is in place, and having an idea of what you're going to be doing with your person is in place, so that you can over deliver up to that point and stay genuinely excited that they have to come in and set an official play date with you to come to the other side of the party. When you're genuinely excited about that, that is not sales energy. When you're afraid because you don't really know what the next step is, and it's just another hour of coaching time, but like, this was an hour call, so like, why would they pay me for more? When you're in that space, your strategy isn't in place, and you've allowed yourself to be self-sabotage. And the problem with that is, what you have done, I say this with tough love, is you have done the greatest disservice to the person who needs you and who has trusted you. If they're on the phone with you, they're like 80%, 70% sold already, and you have done a huge disservice to them. They are still going to have the problem that hasn't gone away, and they will go to someone less qualified who can close them. Period.
Absolutely.
Period.
And that's the thing also too, Liz, and what you're saying, and I believe this as well, is that you want to be able to be present and show up for your clients.
Yes.
So if you don't have your onboarding system down, if you don't have it together, then you're not able to be present, because then you're doing all the stuff.
And let me break down what a system looks like from a low tech perspective. Get ready.
Which is why she's here.
Yep.
Take a listen.
It's really, really complex. So I literally just did a training on this yesterday in sales school, so it's like fresh up there. Here's your onboarding system. System just sounds so fancy. It's swipe copy for an email that says, welcome, Sally, blah, blah, blah. Here's the link to your invoice. Here's the link to the next step. Here's the link to your next step. Can't wait to get started. Part of that onboarding system includes your terms of service agreement or contract already done, ready to go. You just got to edit their name and like whatever specifics about the date that you're working with them. But all of that stuff is already done, so you can just fill in the blanks. Already having your payment system set up so that you can take their non-refundable deposit and send them an invoice for the remainder, or set them up on a payment system, or whatever. All of those things already in place. You send them the welcome email. You've already got the things to link to it. You want to take it up a real notch? You can invite them to a client welcome center. Sounds so fancy. Do you know what it is? It's a Google Doc that they have view only access to, web design on the cheap, okay? They have view only access to a Google document that is in your brand fonts and your brand colors, and it says you can do it. You really want to get fancy, you can make them their own with their name on it. Or it can be generic client welcome center that says, welcome to our client portal. Here's all the links of how you get in touch with me if you have any questions. Here's your assessment. Here's your first intake work. Here are your journaling prompts to get ready for our first session together. Here's the links of other things you would need to. It's a welcome center. It's a client portal. It's whatever you want to. It sounds so fancy. Low tech. Google Docs is free.
Right. Google Drive is free.
Free.
Free. Absolutely. It's so true. And what I love about this, and I hope that, again, comment, tag people, share this. But here's the deal. And what I love about what both of us are doing right now is just giving you information that allows you. I think you are doing yourself a disservice if you don't understand what you want when you're working with somebody, not what they want from you, right? But what you want. It's so important. If you're not aware of how to vet a coach for yourself, a program, this is what I need. Does this have this? Then again, you're throwing money at something that either you're not ready for, or, and most of it is that you're not ready for. And then you're having to scramble so that you're able to, you know, get your return on your investment is what the deal is, and the return on your energy. So that's the thing when we're looking at, and what Liz is telling you about. So, and I'm having to look at the questions and go, okay, well, we covered that. Okay, well, we covered that, because it's just in this conversation, but it's things, I'm not going to lie, these are things that are so important for you to hear, whether or not you're aware of it. And if this is like the first time you've heard this, well, then I'm glad. And especially if you haven't spent any money. And if you have spent money, it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
Because we've all spent money. As an entrepreneur, we've all spent money.
Yes.
On something we probably shouldn't have, because we just didn't know any better.
Right.
And now we know. And that's what happens when you're talking to two people been doing it over 20 years. We're gonna help you navigate. And for me, it's more navigate so that you can better show up and wherever you've invested your money and how to build your business.
Yeah.
That's the deal. So, and you know, and just like what Liz is saying, you really do want somebody that you outgrow, right? Because then you go on to the next person. It's really not intended. I know it's an old coaching model. You're really not intended to stay with somebody forever.
That's the bridge from the therapy model into the coaching world. That to me is the outdated coaching model, because it's where the therapy model started to shift away from insurance and private practice and needing to be, go to school for it, et cetera. That then, oh, I can give advice too. Let me charge for it. Let me adopt the therapy model because that's what I know. And then it's grown into the coaching model as we know it. But you had said earlier that if I have a business coach, and I don't have a business coach right now, I've had them over times, and I've have an executive coach right now that helps me with my leadership. I'm part of NAWBO. I'm the president of my chapter to work on my leadership, because as I've had my business coaches and my marketing coaches work with me to get my business to where it is now, I know what needs to get done next. So we're doing the things, and the money's going to doing the things and paying the team and all that that stuff. That's the face that you make when you're doing these things. And where I need the support is in growing into the leader of the company, prying the things from my cold dead hands so that I can delegate and let go of things to stay. I have 4 jobs: sell, strategize, speak, and serve. None of those say touch the things. Really hard. But right now, I don't need a business coach to get me to the next business level. We did that. We mapped it out. I had a ton of support growing and building and finessing and figuring out sales school. We got it to where it's good now. Now I need the space to get me into where I can continue to grow it. I also have a relationship coach right now, because that feminine energy it's somewhere. I am a woman, but like 100% alpha. So that is one of my Achilles heels as well. So I have the relationship coach to help me be a little bit more in my femme, a bit more in my femme. And I have the leadership coach to help me to be a better leader of my company and my people and the vision and a NAWBO and all of these other things. And I will reach a point where it's like, okay, where do I want to take the business next? And I will go get another business coach at that level to help me do those things. It takes a village, and you're going to get it wrong early because you don't know what you don't know. And that's why I have a problem with the big investments to the early stage people, because they just don't know yet. I think it's highway robbery.
And you know what I would say, just a little piggyback onto what Liz is saying, is that she has a coach, right? So it may not be in business, right?
Right. I've got someone on the outside.
Leveling, I'm just going to, again, spoiler alert, you start to get really specialized in who you work with. And that's what ends up happening. I have a relationship coach. It's funny that you're saying that. I do too. There are a lot of things because for so much, especially of certain generations, we are learning how to be in that feminine and in that woman, because that's not who I was with my last company. I was young and it was a man's world. So it was different.
Mm-hmm.
And things are different now. And I guess that's my point. You're going to see like, where am I at? Because as entrepreneurs, we are a business. So what help do I need? Where do I need to up level? Where are the pieces that I don't have yet? But what Liz does is in the beginning, help you build that foundation, which is so important.
Yeah.
And why does she know that? Because she knows that.
Yeah.
She's been through it. Now I've been through it, but I don't want, that doesn't make me happy. So
Right.
I'm not going to do it. But and I always keep somebody around that helps me do that because that's not my deal. And I don't want to do it. You get to a point where you make your money, you know where you're going to spend it, you know where you're going to invest it, and it best serves you. And again, like Liz said, we stay in our lane. And I think that that's the hardest thing also too. I'm sorry, Liz, is that if you have an organization and you're not a salesperson, guess what? Then you hire somebody.
Yeah.
But you have to know what you don't know in order to know.
Here's the thing about hiring people. I just have to go on a quick aside rant. So there's, for some reason, it's like, I'm going to hire a salesperson on commission. What other role in your company would you hire someone on commission? Would you hire your CFO on commission? Would you hire your accountant on commission? So why on God's green earth is it socially acceptable to put someone who's the front face of your business in a non-paid role unless they deserve it? It's so counterintuitive. You want to pay that person everything. You need to have the budget in place to hire the salesperson to get you out on the front line. And if you want to tie them to your comp plan in a quarterly bonus kind of a way, go for it. But I am telling you, if you're thinking that you're going to get a salesperson on commission who's going to do you any good, nope.
Well, and if you don't have your systems in place and you don't have your lead generation in place, I mean, they're not going to make any money. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's just to understand all that piece, because I think that people want to do that up front, right? Again, that's where Liz's program is valuable, is that the people want to do that up front. And it's like, not yet. It's not until you've got everything in place for it. That's when you start getting your specialized help and you get your specialized contractors and employees or a team, whatever. Again, there's so many terms that you can use for that one.
I think that my marketing message is like the most unsexy thing out there, because it's like, you're going to have to talk on the phone. Nobody wants to do that. They want to hide behind the computer. Too bad, so sad. You're going to talk on the phone. That's what I'm going to teach you how to do. Are you going to make $1 million by next Tuesday? No, it's probably going to take you 12 to 18, closer to 24 months to hit that 120,000 as your annual revenue. It's probably going to take you 24 months. I've had the fastest I've had someone do it was in 6 months. It's doable, but I'm not going to blow smoke up anybody, right? I mean, you are new at what you're doing. There are a lot of foundational pieces that need to happen. If you want to have a job while you're building the business, that's how I started. I was pregnant, working full time while I was building the web design business, while we had a remodeling company going on too, in my spare time. But your first 12 to 18 to 24 months in this business venture that you're in, the goal is to get paid to do market research. That's it. You graduate from here with now a baseline of things you can take to a web designer to say, this is my person. This is specifically what I do with them. This is who's not my person. That's my goal. I had the web design, and marketing agency. And that was the biggest problem I had, is that people were coming to me wanting a website, a marketing strategy, whatever. Well, what do you do for whom? Anyone, anything with pulse and budget, money, person. I can't put together a strategy. I can't do anything with that. So I started giving them the strategy and working with them on the strategy. And it was just taking an insane amount of time to get to the deliverable of the website. And so I started to shift my business model very organically into like marketing, business coach, didn't have a brand, like had 7 brands in like 1 year, really ugly period. And ultimately my clients named my company Selling with Service because that's what they said I was helping them to do. So it was very organic transition. And that's what I teach you how to do, is get paid to do this market research. Clarity comes through conversation. Confusion comes from thought. We can sit there and think ourselves crazy and think about what she would want and what newspapers or magazines would she be reading and what blogs is she going on. Ask her. Get on the phone and ask her. Okay? Have a conversation. Have the framework for what to say in that conversation. Ask her how you can help her. Okay? Why don't we start there? And then she'll become a client and you're going to do something for her to solve a problem that's within your zone. And she's going to give you $1.50 and you've got a new client. And then you're like, why did I charge $1.50? And the next time you're going to charge $3. And the next time you're going to charge $100. And then you have to be committed to the practice of building your business.
So say that again, because that was very profound, Liz, as far as clarity. You have confusion comes from thought and clarity comes from
conversation.
Ooh, I love that.
You have to be committed to the practice of building your business because it is a practice, right? Lawyers have a practice, doctors have, of all the people, I don't want a lawyer that's practicing. I don't want a surgeon that's practicing, right? That's socially acceptable to say my lawyer has a practice. No, be good at it, please. Oh, my brain surgeon has a practice. No.
Right.
Be good at it, please. So why can't we have a practice too? Why can't this be our practice? We need to practice getting good at the things that we're doing, and it's okay to get paid along the way. When you have the expectation that it's free coaching into a $10,000 program, listen, anyone, any woman can lift a car off of their child if we had to. We are built that way. The adrenaline rushes through. It's a survival thing. On any day-to-day basis, we're like, nah, sorry, can't do it. Our kid, there's a problem. The adrenaline kicks in. We can lift a car off of them. Could we do it again? Probably not. Could you go from $0 free coaching to a $10,000 close? Anything's possible. I'm sure you could. Could you do it again and sustain it? Probably not.
Right.
I believe if you want to sustain that level of success, if on a day-to-day basis you want to be able to pick things up and put them down, you need to weight train to get to that level so that you can sustain it. If you want to receive that type of money coming in, can you just do it? Sure. I'm not denying the law of attraction and all that other stuff. I'm also a realist. I'm not a magician. There's energy work that you can clear those blocks in 2.2 seconds. And I also know that there are some foundational practice things that have to happen along the way too. Shit, if you could do both at the same time, that's going to compress the timeline of your journey. And this, 12 to 18 to 24 months that I'm talking about could look closer to 6 months, a year to hit that 6-figure mark. It's a practice to do the things, to build the muscle, to allow the receptivity, to keep it, to build the systems and the things along the practice, get paid to practice, get paid to do the market research.
Absolutely, because that's the thing. I think, and it's a beautiful also practice and doing market research and conversations that actually teach you what a sales conversation is supposed to be like. Because it's a lot of questions.
I got a formula for it.
I bet she does.
I got a formula for it. Love me some frameworks here. 80-15-5. A lot of people teach like a 50-50 conversation, who's talking, who's listening, or 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, whatever. It's 80-15-5. 80% of any conversation is the other person talking, AKA you listening. This is where there's 3 parts instead of just the 2, because 15% of any conversation is you asking questions. If it wouldn't be allowed on Jeopardy, it doesn't come out of your mouth. Very simple. There's a few exceptions to that, which are what I call sentence expanders. Tell me more about that. Help me understand that better. Keep going. That was really interesting. Cool, can you say that differently? Not all questions per se, sentence expanders, again, to feed that 80%. Only 5% of any given sales conversation is where I say permission to speak freely is granted. And that even breaks down, and that's where you can speak in full sentences. And that's even broken down a little bit further into a little bit of introduction in the beginning, kind of remaking sure everyone's just happy and fine and we're humans, and then a little bit of invitation towards the end. No pitch. No pitch. That's it. That's your sales formula. That is the formula for a perfect conversation every single time. And what trips us up as women, especially getting into networking conversations, market research conversations, and sales conversations, is that what am I going to say? How do I introduce myself? How do I talk about what it is that I do? Stop it. Ask questions instead. You don't need to say anything about yourself. The person who's in control is the person who's asking the questions. You're asking the questions. You can take this conversation in any way that you want to take it. It's up to me to then navigate your questions. You're in control and I'm the one speaking the most. And I feel like I'm in control because I'm the one speaking the most, but you're the one in control because you're the one asking the questions. Same thing with a sales conversation.
And it's really funny because, again, you just looked at the curtain of Oz, right? Who's that man behind the green? You know, it's like, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so fun, and I'm guessing because of my sales background in doing these co-lives, my guests say over and over again, that was like one of the best interviews that I've ever had, because I'm asking them questions and I'm featuring them, and there's no ulterior motive. I'm not trying to compete with them as far as let me give you this information or let me talk about me. It's like, again, I've set it up to talk a little bit towards the end. I've told you that to begin with, and it's for you to have an experience, because it's about experience. And I just love, I'm like looking at our questions going, what haven't we covered here? So I love this one because I think we've covered so much in a lot of the questions that I were going to ask. So let's just end it with this, Liz.
Yep.
If you had to do it all over again as a new entrepreneur, what would you do differently?
Uh-huh.
Pay attention, guys. I want you to, like, again, listen and make a comment, because she's going to tell you this answer is going to be good.
Yeah. Okay. I wouldn't have taught my child how to talk. That would have been one. In and out, in and out, in and out.
And you know what? It was so funny. I had a 5-day, I call it an elevation. First day, my cat knocked down my green screen. I was laughing so hard. And I said, one moment, please. And I turned off the camera. This is the deal. Somebody said this yesterday and I loved it. We are, oh my God, it's that we're not working from home. We're actually living at work.
Yeah.
And it's true. And so again, I always say animals, children, it just is. And there's a question or there's something and it's just going to happen. It doesn't take anything from it, because it's like, this is real life.
This is real life. This is real life. Exactly. Yeah.
So what would you do differently, Miss Liz?
If I could do it differently, I would give myself grace that I'm in it for the long run. There's short-term wins that need to happen, but I probably would have given myself some more grace to take in some part-time jobs when I was feeling frustrated, when I was in, I hate the word pivot anymore, but when I was pivoting in transition, ironing things out, when I needed a breather. I had a lot of domestic stuff going on at home. I'm happy to be public about this, but as I was pregnant, building my business, my daughter's father is an abusive alcoholic. So we had that stuff going on in the background too. And when I was able to leave corporate and step into my web design and marketing agency, I probably should have stepped into like a retail job, folding sweaters a little bit for like legit paid for retail therapy to, recenter my soul. So I didn't give myself the grace because there was a shame with an entrepreneur going to take a job. And that's just a bunch of crap, because money attracts money, right? And that frustration and that scarcity repels money. So that would have been one thing. I would have been committed to the long game and understood that I'm in it for the long game and believed in myself a little bit more. So when those short-term hiccups came in, I would have said, this is literally not going to matter a year from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now. I would have given myself that space and that grace. And I would have invested earlier in someone helping me with my money, because that is not a strength of mine at all. It is my Achilles heel. I've got a bankruptcy under my belt. It happens. And I just would have allowed myself more grace, that I don't have to have it all figured out. That just because I'm an entrepreneur and I teach sales and I talk about money doesn't mean that I know the nuances of it and that that's my space. It's not. So I would have allowed myself to be more educated and supported so that I could feed it more. Because what was happening is that because I wasn't tending to it, when I would pile it in and feed it, I knew I was going to screw it up. So I just expedited that process. That's what I would do. I would be like, well, let's not delay me screwing it up. Let's just screw it all up now. And then it was a constant, you know, how do I then rebuild again? And I didn't know what I didn't know. And I know better now, so I do better now. And I just re-engaged. It's a constant for me, right? So I just re-engaged a new financial team, and we're putting some different measures in place. It is not my place of strength. I've always joked, I will teach you how to make money and then we'll go shopping together. I'm not shy about it. And that's just an area I would have allowed myself to be supported in sooner, to allow myself to really build what I should have.
You know, thank you so much for sharing that, Liz, because I think, again, tag, comment, like, this is really great information, because I feel I have conversations all the time where somebody will say to me, well, I'm still, you know, I'm working full time and starting this, and this is my side hustle. Good for you. Or I have a part-time job. Good for you.
Yeah.
The deal
Are they hiring?
And the thing is that when she's talking about like folding, and you want a part-time job that doesn't take a lot of thought.
Yes,
you know,
that's exactly it.
That's mindless.
Because my background is retail. So that's thank you for that. Because it's not that it's a dumbing down or anything. It's that working in the stores is where I came from. So I could do that on my worst day with one eye open. That's exactly, thank you. It required no mental energy whatsoever. Yep.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that what I, you know, again, here's a golden nugget. Pay attention. When you're first starting out, every money that you make in your business goes back into your business.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to have a part-time job in order to pay your bills, or you're going to be stressed.
Yeah.
And an entrepreneur cannot grow a business when you're stressed.
You cannot create clarity from chaos.
So it's, you know, so these are the things like you talk about, like, what's the next step? What's the next step? And sometimes we're working in the beginning to even pour more money back into our business so that it serves us in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Liz is talking about, that long term, and knowing, and it's not, oh, my company's not making enough money to be able to cover this expense. So as I say, you cannot expect someone to pay for you more than you've paid for yourself. And that comes in investments, whether it's personally, professionally, however that is, it's got to come. It's got to happen so that it's mirrored. Again, it's an energetic thing. Now, I'm not saying go out and spend $100,000 so that somebody will pay you $100,000. It happens in increments. But I think, especially during the pandemic, there was a lot of money that was spent. You know, more millionaires are made during a recession. If you haven't heard me say that for the millionth time, but also too, you have to know when to spend that money and when not to. You have to know where you're going to invest your money, however small or big. And I think what happens a lot of times is that people either throw too much at it up front, or want to get it all for free?
I don't think it's so much a dollar amount thing as much as it is an energetic thing. And I know you'll vibe with me on this one. So I have people who have paid in full for my program and they don't ever show up. And I have other people that are on the lowest of the payment plan and they're showing up and getting everything and asking all the questions and going through the material. I don't think the dollar amount is really contingent upon much if someone's paying the big money. I think it's the energy and intention behind whatever that dollar is to them.
Agreed.
It's the
And
energy of it.
sometimes you got to hurt a little. It's got to
Yeah.
be a little painful. If it doesn't scare you, and again, we don't want a reaction. It's a fine line. It's not a reaction. It's not a band-aid. It's if I'm investing this, whatever it is, am I stretching a little bit out of my comfort zone in order to do it, in order for it to pay off?
Yeah. I call it a comfortable stretch. I don't want anyone going into the zone of fear because then they're going to be in paralysis and I can't work with that. I cannot and I will not work with that. And I don't want anyone to be like, oh my God, that's so simple. Like, whatever. Like, I don't want that either because that's a little bit of cocky and ego. And they're going to be like, I have it. I don't need to make it. I just want to help people. Nope, can't work with that either. Right. Got to be a fine line. It's got to be a comfortable stretch to motivate you forward. But I would also offer, this is definitely not from like an accounting perspective, but from an energetic investment perspective. It is true that women especially will not ask anyone to pay them more than they have ever spent on themselves. That is true. That is math. That is fact. It is documented, etc. So how do we get someone to pay us more than we've ever paid when we don't have the money to pay because we've never, right, chicken and egg thing. So I invite people to consider this math equation a little bit differently. Look over time at the investments you have made in yourselves. And this means that you need to look at what investing in yourself looks like. You know what an investment in me looks like? And again, this is not tax or legal advice, and this is definitely, my accountant would slap my hand for this one. But anyways, I'm going to say the things. A grande dirty chai is an investment in myself because it's a self-care kind of a thing. And I feel good about myself when I have that. It changes my energy. It changes my mood, my candles, my essential oils, my crystals, all of those things. Those are investments in me. I spend money on myself. I invest in me. And when I look at all the ways that I invest in me, I could command any fee because I invest in me. Does it look like, oh, I've spent $100,000 on a business coach, so now, no, it doesn't need to look like that. But look at all the ways that you've invested. And if it is an energetic exchange purely in a barter fashion or something like that, quantify that mentally. What would you have charged for the services that you're offering? What would that person have charged you for the services that you're offering? And then quantify that dollar amount mentally. Period. I just hired a marketing agency for a nonprofit that I'm part of, and I'm looking at that. We're doing an energy exchange, and it is a very healthy 5-figure investment that I just made energetically. I just upped my game again, right? It was a Zoom pinky promise, like energetically upped my game again. I just spent a lot, I'm going to receive a lot, and I'm ready to go receive even more.
Absolutely. And it's about reciprocation. And, and I would even say a little bit further on a trade or an exchange. Sometimes it's best that you just each write each other checks, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? Because again, it follows that deal, because sometimes our brain doesn't understand a trade. And again, these are just some suggestions to kind of think about. They're not written in stone. These are just things that I see, that I know, and that I've experienced myself as well. So
if you can't write the check because sometimes the funds just aren't there, then at least write the terms of service agreements or the contracts that are equal and exchange and sign those. If you can't do the check or the money, there's always another way to make it work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to do a little bit of work. I took a lot of notes and it's really good. So once again, what I do is I use a modality. I have 13 different certifications in integrative healing, and the modality that I use actually goes beyond the brain. Because as I say, you cannot solve a problem in the same way it was created.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with our heads. It's always our pain. It comes from our heads. And that's why going beyond the conscious and the subconscious and changing it on a cellular level, because we get so many influences. We've inherited them. We've brought them in with us. We've experienced them in this lifetime. They're in our soul. So when we can change it on all four levels instantaneously, it just makes things a lot better. And it's less that we have to think about. As I say, also with entrepreneurs, use your brain for business. Use it in implementing the system. Don't use it in this way, because you're going to end up taking away from where your brains need it. Let's not take away from where our brains need it. So I always make sure it's very important. It's a very complimentary modality, and the whole fact that you have to say yes out loud. One, so our brain can hear it. Two, so the universe can hear it, and whoever's your divine power. Everybody wants to conspire to make this happen for you, but you have to say yes out loud. So again, one of my lovely featured guest, Liz, will be cueing you when it needs to happen. And always make sure that you have 4 basic beliefs in place. So keep in mind that when you change it on a cellular level, your emotion and your brain will follow. If you do it the opposite way, yes, it does work. Long, arduous, painful, and takes a super long time. So I want an instant healing. I deserve an instant healing. And instant healing is possible. And it's possible for theta healing to work for me gracefully and easily. So those are the 4 basic ones. Always, if this is your first time to come hang out with me, or if you're part of Liz's posse, go ahead and just say yes out loud and we'll get those. That's your cue.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
And the beautiful thing about this, I always forget to say this, is that you will get this work on a replay as well. Mm-hmm. So don't think, oh, I'm going to skip that part because, I didn't catch the live. No, do the replay. It's good. Also, too, it's not thinking yes, it's saying yes out loud. So important. So here are the things. Here's my long list. Okay. We want to change what prevents us from being women and doing sales. We also want to change what prevents us from starting off on low tech and high touch. I love that. We want to change what prevents us from staying in our lane. We want to change what prevents us from utilizing tactics with a strategy. We want to change what prevents us from having that front door process. We want to change what prevents us from having the clarity on what we are selling and who we are selling to. And we also want to change what prevents us from knowing where we want to be so that we can reverse engineer. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that you have to do it personally, but just be aware what prevents you from having reverse engineering happening for you. So let's also get those divine definitions of sales process, client onboarding, market research. And let's change what obligates us to, no, let's change what prevents us from knowing how to protect ourselves from ourselves. That was beautiful. And then we'll do another round. So if you would like those, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
And let's just forgive ourselves for the mistakes that we've made. If you've come to realize that you've made some mistakes, or you've felt the pain of your mistakes in this process because you just didn't know, let's just forgive ourselves, move on. You know better now. You've learned from it. So let's change what prevents us from learning from the mistakes that we've made. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. And then let's see, next round. let's change what prevents us from knowing that that act of service, the biggest act of service, is to sell. Let's change what obligates us to have to cause confusion from thought. So obligation means no choice. And let's change what prevents us from having clarity through conversation. Let's change what prevents us from knowing that it takes practice to build a business. And let's change what prevents us from having short-time wins. Let's change what obligates us to judge that there are transitions and to forgive ourselves for the transitions, and what prevents us from going into transition. Because the deal is that if you don't transition, that's usually the death of a lot of companies, because they weren't willing to be flexible. So let's change what prevents us from having the flexibility to transition. So if you would like those, just say yes out loud. So, Liz, I think you have something free for us. Listen up, folks. What you got for us?
A lot of
there's,
stuff.
there's something, I got a little, let me find it. There is a link to the 120K.
Yeah. The 120K Club, that's the Facebook group. So that's the one where you're in, and we were talking about it. Every Tuesday, I do a Teaching Tuesday. And the theme that I've been hearing from people most, where they need the most support, are conversations around pricing. So that's kind of where we're focused right now, and where the next topics through April are going to be focused, conversations around pricing. We've got a lot of engagement in the group. I love it. I actually worked, again, hiring where we need. I hired a Facebook group strategist to help me get it right, because that's right outside of my zone. But in the Facebook group, we really, that's designed to give you the thing that you need right now. Obviously, I'm a business. It's a feeder for my sales school program. Of course, I'm not going to be shy about that. That's where we continue to reach all the things. And in the meantime, tell me the thing that you need me to train on, and I'm going to get in there and do a Teaching Tuesday training on it to help fix your problem. That's how we roll.
Well, and it's a great opportunity to try before you buy type thing, or try and not buy.
Yeah.
It doesn't, but at least you have an experience. Beware, guys, of people who aren't willing to let you have a little taste. And again, it's not giving it away in a discovery call. It's finding a way that allows them to have an experience. And this is a great model.
Yeah, and my program is so specific, to who is really going to do well. Like, I could teach anyone how to sell, blah, blah, blah. But the program that is my business right now in the Sales School for Entrepreneurs, with the invisible business model, with the Close Clients Quickly system and the onboarding that we teach, it's so specific that there are women in the club that will never become sales school students, because their business model doesn't 100% align with what I teach, and it wouldn't make sense for them to come into the club. But they're getting a ton of value, helping them with what they need. I'm their resident sales coach, right? While they're getting what they need in other places, until they're able to afford the next level support that they need on the outside. I'm cool with that. It takes a village. It takes a village. Let me love on you. Let me help you with what I can. Take a little bit of it, go play it out there, test it, merge it with what this one said, find your own rhythm and style. Go get them, girl.
There you go.
Yeah.
And, I also have a group as well. We're positioning it and changing it a bit to be more business oriented instead of energy, because people get a little confused with that. And I'm all about what it takes, the energy of your business, what it takes in order to up level you. So same time, same place every week right now. And next week, let me tell you who we have, is Dr. Michael Simmons. And we're going to be looking at the critical shifts needed for doctors and patients in medical care, which is kind of cool. And, to know about this, and we're not really talking about COVID here, guys, or pandemic. We're just talking about, in general, the medical field, and the empowerment of who you are as a
Mhm.
client or a patient. It all goes hand in hand. So it's beautiful.
That's
And
gonna be a fascinating conversation. Not to hijack, but it reminds me, I was at a networking group near Yale a couple years ago, and one of the panelists was there talking about all of the research of the disconnects from doctors and how patients truly need to be advocates for themselves. And it just really is a conversation disconnect, that the doctors are trained in the thing, but not necessarily in how to communicate with the patients, and the patients certainly don't know how to communicate to a doctor. And it was so fascinating to hear this conversation. Just to plug for this guy, I don't know him, but the value I got out of that conversation, I'm sure this is going to be equally, if
well,
not
it's also, he's also looking at doctors as well in
yeah.
practice and that type of thing. But it's so true. My family has a medical background. So I was equipped to go to a appointment in a different way. And throughout my whole life, I didn't completely understand it, because inevitably my whole life, every physician or dentist or whoever I've ever seen, they've been like, who in your family's in the medical field? Because I showed up in a different way. And I'd be like, after about like the 20th time, actually several times, I'd be like, do people not tell you like what they want, what they need? It's like, you got to show up. I mean, I don't know what the prescription is exactly. I know what I don't want the prescription to be.
Right.
Again, we know what hasn't worked type thing. So it's just showing it up in a different way. So I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Please join us again. Always some theta healing work at the end. And you know how to get in touch with Liz. You know how to get in touch with me. And once again, Liz, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been great.
Yeah, this is great.
All right, guys. So again, comment, share, like, and tag.
Yes.
Thanks again.